بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. Now we're moving on to 4 new terms: ظاهر, nas, مفسر, and محكم. Again, I'll explain it as I come along. No point trying to explain it now. So, a recap: we're doing Kitabullah, and in Kitabullah, what we're analyzing? We're analyzing words. So, the first way we analyze words, باعتبار الوضع. How has that word been coined? If it's been coined for a known meaning, it can be khas, and it can mutlaq and muqayyad, depending whether the sifa or adjective or idafa to, we confine it to a particular fard or particular types of fard. You can am maqsoos and am ghayr maqsoos. Then we can have a mushtarak and a mu'awwal, and mu'awwal can also become mufassar if it's from the mutakallim. Taqsim thani is bi'tibar isti'mal, how that word is being used. Is it being used in a coined meaning? You have haqiqah, or you can have majaz, the non-haqiqi, non-coined meaning. And that usage, is it clear or is it unclear? Sarih and kinaya. Now, what we're looking at is باعتبار الظهور والخفاء. What we're trying to deduce from that text, is it clear or is it not clear? Now, we'll understand how it's different to sarih and kinaya as we move along. Okay? And then we have ظاهر, nas, mufassar, and muhkam. The opposite to that we have khafi, mushkil, mujmal, and mutashabih. What do all of these words mean? We'll cover it slowly, inshallah. Not a problem, no need to worry. Okay. These are called, and they're actually like this, mutaqabilat. So there's 8 of them, but they go in pairs. Opposite of zahir is khafi, opposite of nas is mushkil, opposite of mufassal is mujmal, opposite of muhkam is mutashabih. Yes? And again, when we go over and over again and discuss them, we understand what's meant by each one of them. Okay? So kalima, we can have ma'lumul ma'na, ghayr ma'lumul ma'na. If the meaning is ma'loom, it can have one meaning or multiple meanings. If it has one meaning, it refers to a single fard, a single naw, a single jins, is called khas. And if it has no adjective, no idafa, no particular restrictions, it's mutlaq. And you can have a muqayyad as well. Then after that, we can have multiple afrad, it's am. Nobody's become mustasna, ghayr maqsoos, or mustasna becomes maqsoos. And they have many ma'ani, is mushtarak or is mufassar or mu'awwal. Correct? And ghayr ma'lum al-ma'na will come under mujmal and mutashabih later on. Then we said these are the coinage of these usages. So if it's used in ma wudi allahu haqiqa, for example, sab'una means 70 exact, kul means every. The haqiqi mean, majazi meaning of those are sab'una to mean plenty, a lot, or kul to mean most things. Yes? And then after that, how is the murad? What's the murad? Is it clear? Is it explicit? Or is it not clear and explicit? From there you have zahir and you have, not zahir, you have sarih and you have kinaya. Understood? Acha. So, faslun fil mutaqabilat. These next 8, باعتبار الظهور والخفاء, they call mutaqabilat. Because each 4 has an opposing 4. Each 4 has an opposite 4. Khas and am go together. I guess mushtarak mu'awwal go together, haqiqa majaz go together. Now these 4 go with the opposite 4. What are these 4? نعني بها الظاهر والنص والمفسر والمحكم مع ما يقابلها, along with what opposes them, i.e. khafi, mushkil, mujmal, mutashabih. What do these mean? We'll cover them bit by bit. الظاهر والنص. الظاهر اسم لكل كلام ظهر المراد به للسامع بنفس السماع من غير تأمل. That meaning which comes to your mind. So it's sarih. We know the meaning, but what you understand, this comes in your mind straight away without any ta'ammul. Like, just understand it straight away. Nas is the same thing. You understand it straight away. وَالنَّسُ مَاسِيقَ الْكَلَامُ لِأَجْلِهِ. However, the nas is that text, that meaning, for which the kalam has been brought. Okay, let me give an example here. وَمِثَالُهُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. We'll do an example tomorrow, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So we're now going to go through an example to explain al-Zahir and al-Nas. So we said al-Zahir is something which is apparent from the text, simply from the text. You read the text, you understand that meaning. Al-Nas is ikhtilaf regarding this definition, but this is a definition which has been mentioned in the books of Usool al-Fiqh. So look at this verse. وَمِثَالُهُ فِي قَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made bay' halal and riba haram. When you read this text, when you hear this text, what comes to mind? It's called the Zahir. What's the Zahir? Bay' is halal, riba is haram. Is that clear? That is a Zahir. Okay. فَالْآيَةُ سِيقَتْ سَاقَ يَسُوقُ سَوْقًا, to bring. So the ayah has been brought لِبَيَانِ التَّفْرِقَةِ بَيْنَ الْبَيْءِ وَالرِّبَا. Yes? Ji. So لِبَيَانِ التَّفْرِقَةِ بَيْنَ الْبَيْءِ وَالرِّبَا. So the Zahir meaning is bay' is halal and riba is haram. But why has this verse been brought? Tafriqah, to show the difference. To show the difference between bay' and riba. Raddan, to refuse, to reject, to refute. مَدَّعَاهُ الْكُفَّارِ مِنَ التَّسْوِيَةِ بَيْنَهُمَا. Ma, the min bayaniyah. To reject the claim the kuffar made. What did the disbelievers of Makkah claim? التَّسْوِيَةِ بَيْنَهُمَا, that both are equal. So the disbelievers of Makkah made a claim that both are the same. حيث قالوا, where they said, this is the wrong verse here. What's it supposed to be? إنما البيع, supposed to be إنما البيع مثل الربا. That's what they said. So they were making a claim that the same way you can buy and sell something, if I buy this for £5 and I sell it to you for £10, I'm making a profit. If I sell money to you right now, I say here is £10, buy it for £30, but you should pay later. Why can't I sell money? I've done riba maslain, quduri. So the meaning that we understood from the apparent text is that bay' is halal and riba is haram. But the nas, the reason the text has been brought is to remove, repel, refute the claim that they made that bay' and riba is the same. Fahim? So وَقَدْ عُلِمَ حِلُّ الْبَيْعِ وَحُرْمَةُ الرِّبَا بِنَفْسِ السَّمَاعِ. Simply by reading the verse, hearing the verse, you can understand bay' is halal, riba is haram. That is the Zahir of the text. What is the nas? فَصَارَ ذَلِكَ نَصًّا فِي التَّفْرِقَةِ. So this verse has a nas and it has a Zahir. The Zahir is حِلُّ الْبَيْعِ حُرْمَةُ الرِّبَا. What is the nas? التفرقة بين الربا والبيع. ظاهر في حل البيع وحرمة الربا. Do you understand? Why do we need to know this? We'll understand the examples later on. Okay? Another example, قوله وكذلك قوله تعالى فانكحوا ما طاب لكم من النساء مثنى وثلاث ورباع. That it is permissible to marry 2, 3 or 4 women, up to 4, as you like. This is permissible in Islam. Yes, before Islam, they can marry as many as they want. They didn't have, none of them had any rights. Like you didn't have to be equal, you have fair, you can marry as many as you want. Islam limited it to 4. And in khiftum alla ta'dilu, and if you can't be fair to all 4 of them, then fawahid min ma malakat aymanukum. Another issue altogether. Now, what's the text being brought for? لِبَيَانِ الْعَدَدِ. The purpose of this text, فِيمَا يَظْهَرُ لَنَا. As we can see, what appears to us is that the purpose of this text is to do bayan of the number of azwaj as permissible. That's a nas. So what the kalam has been brought for is called the nas. Correct? وَقَدْ أُلِمَ الْإِطْلَاقِ وَالْإِجَازَةِ بِنَفْسِ السَّمَاعِ. Just by hearing the text, we can say, well, there is no qaid, whichever woman it is, whether it's mutlaq. Any 2, any 3, or any 4 you can marry. And it's permissible. So you from a text, you can tell that straight away. Itlaq, there's no restriction on who you can marry. Just up 2, 3, or 4. And it's permissible. From the text, we can see that. But the sawq, the nas, the reason the text has been brought is to do bayanul adad. Is to explain what? The adad, the number of people, or the number of women you're allowed to marry. So you have a ظاهر and you have a nas. فصار ذلك ظاهرا في حق الإطلاق. This verse is a ظاهر in any two, any three, any four. Yes, and that nikah, the more than one is permissible. That's a ظاهر. And the text is a nas regarding the number you can marry. Yes, and we'll come back to this shortly. So you understand ظاهر and nas? Okay. Third example. وكذلك قوله تعالى لا جناح عليكم إن طلقتم النساء ما لم تمسوهن أو تفرضوا لهن فريضة. Now this is from Mufti Usman Ishaq. He says there's no liability, meaning if you divorce a wife, if you got married, and before the marriage can be consummated, let's say for example she's in another country, she didn't get a visa, or they decided, you know what, we don't want to go ahead with it after they got married. So لم تمسوهن, you have not yet touched them, nor fix a mahar. Then you do not have to give a mahar. You just give mata'uhunna, you give mata, a mut'ah. And that's the clothing, as we mentioned before. So if there's a nikah, and before the nikah is consummated, there is talaq, then you don't have to give dowry. You give mut'ah. Which mut'ah means here, the mentioned quduri, a pair of clothes, etc. is mentioned in there. You understand? Okay. So what's this here? Nassun fi hukmi man lam yusammi lahal mahar. This text has been brought to explain the rules of mahar regarding that woman with whom the marriage has not been consummated. What's the ruling? That she doesn't have to give? He doesn't have to give mahar. Correct? So this is why the text has been brought. But you can see here, طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاء. From this we learn what? استبداد الزوج بالطلاق. Who gives talaq? The husband is the one who gives divorce. وفيه كلام, you can discuss this and you can have kalam on this, but that's not what he's saying. Now here he went on to something which hasn't been mentioned yet. Ishara. This will come up later on in a few chapters. It's something called isharatun nas. Something you understand from the text. It's not apparent. The text hasn't been brought for this, but you can deduce it from the words. So if he says here there is no dowry compulsory upon you if the marriage has not been consummated, what does that mean? That without stating a mahar, you have not stipulated a mahar. So if you marry her, you haven't stipulated a mahar, and you haven't consummated a marriage. So what does that mean? That having a nikah without stipulating a mahar is permissible. So isharatan, the text has not been brought for this. It's not a zahir, but the text hints towards it. It implies it. That nikah without mentioning a mahar, yasihu, is permissible. This will come up later on, isharatun nas. But for now we're looking at the nas and the zahir. Okay? So what we learned, that a text has a nas and it has a zahir. A zahir is the apparent meaning, and the nas is the meaning which we can deduce, which is the purpose the text has been brought. And when we do the examples of ta'arud, it becomes very clear. Similarly, the Prophet ﷺ says, "Man malaka dha rahim." If a person comes to own one of his family members, now obviously you have multiple family members. Some of them are mahramin minhu, who he can't marry. Yes? So those people who you are not allowed to marry, for him, if you come to own one of them, utiqa alayhi, that slave automatically becomes free. So let's say, for example, your father was a slave, your mother was a slave, your sister was a slave, your aunt was a slave, and you purchased them. So malaka dha rahim. Your cousin is a slave. Can you marry your cousin? Yes. So it's not mahram. So if you own a slave, you come to purchase a slave who is a mahram from you. Now, how can you own your father? How can you own your mother? How can you own your aunt? Utiqa alayhi. Immediately what will happen? They become free. So from this we say, Nassun fi istihqaq al-iqki lil-qarib. This text has been brought to show what? That if you come to own a close relative, and who's a close relative? Somebody, if they're either female or if they were the female, like father, then if the opposite of the father's mother, you can't marry your mother. You got a brother, opposite sister, you can't marry your sister. So if you own one of these close relatives, automatically you become free. This is why the text has been brought. But from this we also know that man malaka, what does malaka mean? Who owns? That means that when you buy them, what happens? What happens? You come to own them. The milk is thabit. So Zahir, you have ownership. And the purpose of text has been brought not to show ownership, is to show that they are now worthy of being freed. Understood? Yes? So hukm al-Zahiri when Nas. You have the hukm of the Zahir and the Nas. The Zahir and the Nas, the ruling of these two is wujubul amali bihima. Yes? That you must do amal upon them. Whether they are amaini kana aw khasain. Whether they are or whether they are. So whether they are or whether they are khas. In both cases you must do amal upon them. Does everybody understand this? You must do amal upon them whether they are or whether they are khas. Got it? Achha. Mahtimali iradatil ghayr. And it's also possible that something else is the intended meaning. وَذَلِكَ بِمَنْزِلَةِ الْمَجَازِ مَا الْحَقِيقَةِ. Look, what we're saying here is al-Zahir and Nas are the qat'i dalala or the dhanni dalala. Okay? So it's similar to the discussion that we have in Majaz and Haqiqah. We didn't have it, but the discussion is have. This happens in the Aqidah and more complex books of Usool. Every Haqiqah, what's the possibility? It could be. So then that means is every word going to be dhanni? You following? So what they say is the rajih and the conclusion is that even though any word can be a majaz, but that's a possibility without evidence. Everything could be something else, couldn't it? So haqiqah bidhatihi is qat'i dalala unless there's a qareena, some kind of reason to think it could be majaz, then it becomes dhanni. Fahim? So similarly the Zahir and the Nas, he's saying here is am or khas, whatever it is, it remains what? Qat'i. Why? Even though ihtimal of ghayr, something other meanings intended, but that ihtimal is nashi'un min ghayri dalil. It comes about without the possibility of dalil. Sorry, without any reason to think it is something else. So we say it remains as what? How does it remain? It remains qat'i. And there's ikhtilaf in this. It's in a hasha the ikhtilaf. But for now we simply say that even though the ihtimal of ghayr, that's ihtimal an ghayri nash, ihtimalun nashi'un an ghayri dalil. So we want to consider that. We simply say it is qat'i. But there's bahth in there. Some say certain was a qat'i, certain a dhanni. But for now, do you understand this? Just like majaz and haqiqah. Every haqiqah is majaz. But we still say, if there's a reason to think it's majaz, then it becomes dhanni. If there's no reason, it's an ihtimal, you don't call it dhanni. Similarly with Zahir and Nas. We say we do amal upon the Zahir, we do amal upon the Nas, whether it's am or khas, and that becomes qat'i, unless there's a reason to think it's ghayr. Correct? Then he gives one example here. وَعَلَى هَذَا قُلْنَا إِذَا اشْتَرَى قَرِيبَهُ. If a person purchases his close relative, مَلَكَ ذَا رَحِمٍ مَحْرَمٍ مِنْهُ, what will happen? أُطِيقَ عَلَيْهِ. So what we say? أُطِيقَ عَلَيْهِ. Correct? That slave now becomes free automatically. Who is the person who's freeing it? He is the mu'tiq. Yes, he is the mu'tiq. وَيَكُونُ الْوَلَاءُ لَهُ. And he will have wala. What does wala mean? When you free a slave, then you have this wala. What does wala mean? Like certain rights for it. So let's say he passes away and he has no inheritors. Who will get the inheritance? The mu'tiq. Correct? So أُطِيقَ عَلَيْهِ يَكُونُ هُوَ مُعْتِقًا. So أُطِيقَ عَلَيْهِ. So we're saying here that he becomes a mu'tiq. And the mu'tiq has the wala. So we do amal upon this. So the nas is what? This text has been brought to show who gets that it becomes free. Yes? So we do amal upon that. So it becomes free. And we do amal upon the Zahir as well. What's the Zahir? أُطِيقَ عَلَيْهِ. So we then amal upon the Zahir and the Nas. You following? Because you do amal upon the Zahir and the Nas. It's just normal. Everybody following online? Okay, let's move on. Okay, now this is where the main good discussion comes about. وَإِنَّمَا يَظْهَرُ التَّفَاوُتُ بَيْنَهُمَا عِنْدَ الْمُقَابَلَةِ. We will see the benefit or the difference between the nas and the zahir when you have a muqabala and a nas and a zahir come in contradiction. Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you some examples of my own. We've got the book first. فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَعَ. What's the zahir of this ayah? Or what's the nas? G. What's the zahir of this ayah? So the nas is what? Adad, the number. The text has been brought to clarify how many women you can marry. Maximum 4. Reduce it from the unlimited to 4. And in zahir, is basically saying that you can marry. You just, the zahir. Okay. Next verse. حرمت عليكم أمهاتكم وبناتكم وأخواتكم وعماتكم وخالاتكم بنات الأخ وبنات الأخت إلى آخر الآية وأحل لكم ما وراء ذلكم. What's the nas of this verse? The nas of this verse. G. حرمة or the muharramat. Bayanul, very good. Muhayyinul muharramat. To explain to us who is haram. The zahir of this is how many? Is what? I don't know the first verse. I've just read this one verse. And I said, okay, I won't marry any of these, but I'll marry ma wara'a dhalikum. Apart from these, you can marry whoever you want. 10 wives. Because this verse says ma wara'a dhalikum. So it is zahir fil adad. How many of you want? Marry 10. And this ayah says 2, 3 or 4. Marriage is zahir in man. So he can marry his mother, his sister. Because minan nisa, any women. You following here? You following? That's not mutlaq muqayyad. I get what you're saying. But now what we say here, regards to adad, which verse will you take? Why? Because nas is higher than zahir. So regarding adad, what will you take? Top ayah. How many can you marry maximum? Who can you marry? Which ayah do you take? The bottom. Why? Because it's nas for muharrama, who you can't marry. So when you have when different aspects of two different texts contradict, which one do you take? The nas. Nas is because that's why this text has been brought. So regarding this mas'ala, this will be the defining text. Another example. G. So the question is, why do we argue that this is am? This is am, khussa, anhu al-ba'd. You can say that. It's am, khussa, anhu al-ba'd. But how do we know which one you put in which order? So this is am, khussa, anhu al-ba'd because this makes it makhsus. If you take the opposite way around, I said that this is the predominant in terms to man. So we're going to take this as the man, this is a kam, this is kam, this is man. So we know how to arrange them. And this am becomes khussa anhu al-ba'd because we say this is nas in muharramat, but this is nas in man. Sorry, in kamiyya, how much you can marry. So this ma becomes makhsus because of this verse. This verse overrides the man. So the nas and zahir allows us to put the structure, which one is going to have taqdeem and which effect. Another example. ليس على الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات جناح فيما طعموا إذا ما اتقوا. Those people who believe and do good deeds, there is no sin, eat whatever you want, just have taqwa. Perform your fajr salah, your tahajjud salah, make dua, then eat McDonald's, eat pig, drink alcohol, don't cause anybody harm. You see, it's the Quran, clear. Bro, follow the Quran. No? No? It's in the Quran. ليس على الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات جناح فيما طعموا إذا ما اتقوا. Someone's got my clip and then just pick it out and say he's saying wrong fatwa. Abdullah? Yeah, I'm going to frame me, blackmail me. Take that from my clip and say, look, man, I said you can eat whatever you want, you can eat pig. Put the hajj and then go eat pig, huh? Yeah, okay. The zahir is what? The zahir of this text is حل الطعام كلها كله. Correct? This ayah is حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أحل لغير الله به إلى آخره. The nas of this verse is what? الطعام المحرم. The nas of this verse is, you need to know sabab al-nuzul. that when some of the Muslims passed away, thereafter the ruling of alcohol came down as haram, ruling of certain things came down. So it's like they passed away while drinking alcohol. So it says, لَيْسَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَبِالصَّالِحَاتِ جُنَاحٌ فِيمَا طَعِمُوا إِذَا مَا اتَّقَوْا. When they were alive, they had taqwa. Drinking alcohol was not against taqwa because it was halal. So there's no harm. So this is nas fi bayani hukmi man mata qabla hurmatil khamri wa ghayriha. You following? So now regarding which food is currently haram, which ayah do we take? The bottom one. And regarding those people who ate the haram food before it became haram, we take which one? The top one. So when the nas of the zahir of this, the top verse, that every food is halal, and the nas of the bottom, certain foods are haram. Which is our preference, the zahir of the nas? So the topic of hurmatut ta'am, in one verse is nas, and one verse is zahir. Which verse do we take? We take the nas. So we have on our website, classroom rules. Students may use a laptop or tablet in class to access information related to class. Yes? And next part of the website, students may not use laptops or tablets. Yes? So now, this is nas in regards to what? Ahkamil exams. And this is nas when? Ahkamil class. This is zahir this is zahir for all times. Correct? You can use it in class, innit? So regarding exams, this is zahir in exams, this is nas in exams. For exams, which part do you have to follow? The bottom one. Do you understand? Because regarding using laptops in exams, one is zahir, one is nas. So which one do you follow regarding exams? You understand? So it applies everywhere. If you think, you can think of many other examples. Ji, only question, ask the question. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. So we have explained the difference between zahir and nas. The zahir is something which is the initial meaning understood from the text, and nas is the reason the person has brought the text. And I give them examples before. Now let's look at a fiqhi example as given in this book. We have here, لو قال لها, if a person says to his wife, طلقي نفسك. What does it say? طلقي نفسك. He's doing tawkeel. So he's making his wife talaq, wakil, so she can give talaq if she wishes to herself. فقالت. What did she say in response? أبنت نفسي. Again, this zahir and nafs is not as clear as the previous examples that we gave. If she said أبنت نفسي, I have now separated myself from you. Now, in the top example, طلقي نفسك, are those words for talaq raj'i or talaq ba'in? Talaq raj'i. So in that scenario, what will occur? طلقي نفسك. If you said طلقت نفسك, talaq raj'i or talaq ba'in? Talaq raj'i. But if she goes on further and she says أبنت نفسي, what did she say? أبنت نفسي, I have separated myself from you. So we say in this scenario that the talaq that will occur is talaq raj'i, not talaq ba'in. Why is this? لأن هذا, this text here, طلقي نفسك نص في الطلاق, it has been brought for talaq. He's brought this text to give the meaning of talaq. Correct? وظاهر في البينونة, and it is apparent for baynuna, meaning from the apparent meaning you get is when she said sorry, the word hadha is referring to abantu nafsi. So this is nassun fi talaq, zahirun fi baynuna. Why is this? Because when he said, what has this text been brought for? To follow up on the previous text. Are you following? So the nas, the reason this text has been brought is to carry out the hukam given in the first. And the hukam given, or the tawkil given, was talaq raj'i. So talliqi nafsaki is talaq raj'i. Correct? And the word abantu nafsi is nas to carry out that command, or the tawkil. So even though the zahir fil baynuna, from this you understand straight away, the apparent meaning is that she's ba'ina. But we say here, because it is a follow-up to the talliqi nafsaki, we say it is nas fi talaq. So talaq raj'i will occur. You can argue for this, but you understand the concept. So he's saying here, because abantu nafsi has two possibilities. It is talaq raj'i or talaq ba'in. Which one is the nas? Talaq raj'i, because she's carrying out the ruling of the tawkil of talliqi nafsaki. So therefore, in this situation, this scenario, talaq raj'i will take place, not talaq ba'in. So look, if you see here, let's start situation number one. Well, the same situation in details. When he said talliqi nafsaki, what is this? Nassun fi talaq, isn't it? And then she replied, abantu nafsi. Correct? So now, this is zahir fil baynuna, ya fi talaq al-ba'in. But we will say, because this is a response to talliqi nafsaki, so the nas of this, the purpose of this, will apply to here. So even though the words in here are abantu nafsi, the hukam will be hukam of talaq. So therefore, yatarajjahu al-amalu bin nafs. We say the nas is fi talaq. It's clear, explicit for talaq, meaning the talliqi nafsaki words will have dominance over the abantu nafsi words. So therefore, talaq ba'in will not occur, rather talaq raj'i will occur. Another example we have where zahir and nas seem to contradict. قوله عليه الصلاة والسلام لأهل أرينة اشربوا من أبوالها وألبانها. So we have two hadith. In the first hadith, what's happened? The Prophet, a group of the villagers came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Urayna. They came to Medina Munawwara and they stayed there for a while. They became sick. After they became sick, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam recommended to them that they should go on the outskirts of Medina Munawwara, and he said, "Ishrabu min abwaliha wa albaniha." Go to the outskirts of Medina Munawwara, and there's some ibil, some camels there. So go and drink from abwaliha. Abwal means it's bowl, it's urine. Wa albaniha means it's milk. Drink from these two. Fahimd? Yes? On the left hand side, we have a hadith. The Prophet ﷺ was passing by two graves. And regarding that, he said them that they're being punished. And one of the reasons that they're being punished is they were not particular regarding urine. When they would go to the toilet, etc., if it goes on the body, or they were not particular about that. So istanzihi min al-bawl. Istanzihu min al-bawl. So stay away from bawl. Because the majority of the adhab al-qabr is because of not abstaining from bawl. Correct? So now, we have two situations. One way of looking at it is istanzihu min al-bawl. The alif lam is for what? With istighraq. This is for istighraq. Okay? Now this is abwali has way for the ibil. So do we say it's am maqsus? The one on the left is the am, and this is the mukhassis. We allowed one is exception, so this is not impure. That's one way of looking at it. Correct? The other way of looking at it is no, they're both the same level. We're not looking at takhsis. We're looking at it as this is zahirun. When you read this hadith, what is a zahir meaning from this? Hillul bawla. This hillu bawl al-ibil is not impure. However, we look at the whole hadith, this is how he's labeling it. This, accept what he's saying. He's saying this is nas. The Prophet sallallahu in regards to shifa. In regards to shifa. This hadith has been brought to explain that that bowl and al-abwalul ibil and albanul ibil is shifa. So the reason this text has been brought is to explain what? The sabab shifa. The maqsoor of this text is not to explain whether it is halal or tahir. On the other hand, this hadith on the left hand side, why has it been brought? It has been brought to inform us regarding what is halal, what the halal and the najasa of it. Do you understand? So when we look regarding, not shifa, when we look regarding the hil, whether it's permissible or whether it's najasa and tahara, regarding which hadith will be taken as a source for najasatuhu wa taharatuhu? On the left, because the Prophet used this hadith explicitly to mention regarding something being pure, impure, regarding it being a means of punishment. And the Prophet mentioned this one on the right regarding cure. So we wouldn't say the same level. It's not ta'aruz. We're saying this is not regarding the nas of this hadith is not what? It's not tahara and hil. And the nas of the hadith is tahara and hil. So when we have two hadith, they're discussing the same topic, but one is discussing it that topic from the Zahir perspective, and the other one is discussing it from a nas perspective. Which one do we give preference to? We give it the nas preference. So regarding to the bowl being halal or tahir, which hadith we refer to? The one on the left. That's how he's explained it. There are many other ways of looking at it, but this is one way he's looking from Usool perspective. That both of these hadiths we can understand from this taharatul abwalil ibil wa najasatuha. Correct? Because one of them deals with it from a nas perspective, and one of them is a zahir. So what's given preference? The nas. And the nas one tells us istanzihu min al-bawl. So therefore, regarding the tahara and the najasa of it, we'll use this hadith. Does that make sense to everybody? So the text says, likewise, meaning regarding a nas and a zahir being contradictory, is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he told the people of Urayna, ishrabu min abwaliha wa albaniha. Nassun fi bayani sababi shifa. The purpose of this text was to explain to them what is going to give you cure. Because the whole hadith tells us they became ill, they needed the cure. So this hadith is talking about cure. But when something is, but the zahir that we understand from this is fi ijadati shurbil bawl. That drinking urine should be permissible. That's zahir. We have another hadith. وقوله عليه الصلاة والسلام استنزهوا من البول فإن عامة عذاب القبر منه. In this hadith, the nas, the reason of the text is what? Mentioning the permissibility or the impermissibility of the bowl and the tahara and najasa. So therefore, this is nasun fi wujub al-ihtiraz an al-bawl. This has been brought to tell us how we interact with bowl. That was brought to us to show us it being cure or not, or sabab shifa or not. Do you understand? So therefore, فَيَتَرَجَّهُ النَّصُّ عَلَى الظَّاهِرِ. The nas will be given zahir. So in these two hadiths, we will take the nas. When we want to deduce the ruling regarding tahara and hil and najasa and hurma, we will look at the second hadith, which is nas in that topic. Does that make sense to everybody? A third example where we have a contradiction between the nas and the zahir. In the hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Ma saqathu as-sama'u fafihi al-ushru." That whatever the sky irrigates, there's ushr. So there's zakat you have to give on your produce. On agriculture you have to give ushr, which is 1/10. Are you following? So if the farmer is not arranging the irrigation, it is being irrigated by itself, what happens then? You have to give ushr. And what is ma? In terms of as am. So this means everything which the skies irrigate itself, meaning it is naturally irrigated. What do we have to give? Ushr. It's another hadith. ليس في خضروات. What's خضروات mean? Vegetables. فهمت؟ صدقة. There is no صدقة in vegetables. Now this second hadith, what does it tell us? There's no صدقة. But the word صدقة, which is mushtarak. Okay, let's look at this one here. This hadith is nassun to tell us where there's ushar. Are you following? And this hadith on this side is mushtarak. Why is it mushtarak? What does sadaqah refer to? It can mean what? It could mean zakat. It can mean ushar. It can mean sadaqatul fitr. Now in here we have a nas. So this nas is muqaddam over that. Yes? So the way we're looking at it here is that both hadiths can be applied to the rulings of ushar. But one is nas fil ushar. So which hadith will be given preference to do istilal and deduce a ruling for ushar? On the right. Because this has been brought for ushar. That has not been brought to explain ushar. And they have the word sadaqah, and sadaqah is even mushtarak. So that the istidlal from that hadith for ushar is not as strong as this istidlal. You following? So therefore the nas will have tarjih, that regarding ushar being compulsory in something from the heavens. This is am. Because it is am, it applies to everything. Well, is that makhsus? So no, makhsus, because that's not even on the same level. So we say that applies to something else, not to ushar. For him. Yes? Acha. So the Prophet ﷺ says, مَا سَقَتْهُ السَّمَاءُ فَفِيهِ الْعُشْرِ. Whatever the heavens sachet, whatever the heavens irrigate, there's ushar. This is nas to explain what? Ushar. وَقَوْلُ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ لَيْسَ فِي الْخَضْرَوَاتِ صَدَقَةٌ. They both still contradict. So we say here, this is mu'awwal. How is it mu'awwal? Because sadaqah is mushtarak. أي مشترك في أقسامها. صدقة الفطر, zakat, صدقة النافلة. So to say that it means what? أي ليس في الخضروات عشر. That's a bit ta'wil. And ta'wil is what? قطعي ظني. لأن الصدقة تحتمل وجوها, multiple possibilities. فيترجح الأول على الثاني. So this, the top hadith, that will be given preference when we are discussing the ruling of ushar, because that is nas fil ushar, and the other one is muhtamil fil ushar. So nas is stronger than the zahir, and not even a zahir, but imma awwal. Does everybody understand? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Now we're moving on to al-mufassar. What does mufassar mean? Something which has been clarified. The mutakallim himself explains what his intended meaning is. وأما المفسر فهو ما ظهر المراد به من اللفظ. That word, what the intended meaning is clear to us. Not from a local perspective, not via ijtihad and ta'wil, but how? بيان من قبل المتكلم. The mutakallim himself has explained that this is the intended meaning. Because now, when the mutakallim explains his intended meaning, there's no ihtimal, possibility of what? Ta'wil, i.e., taking from the haqiqah and say, well, it actually means majaz. So when the mutakallim himself has said that the meaning and the purpose of this is what? Is haqiqah, then there is no ihtimal of majaz. Similarly, if the mutakallim has expressed something and said it's am, and it's غير عام غير مخصوص, then in this situation what happens? We say now the mutakallim has given us tafsir, so there's no ihtimal of ta'wil and there's no ihtimal of takhsis. Let's take a Quranic example here. Inna Allah yaghfiru dhunuba jami'a. Inna Allah yaghfiru dhunuba jami'a. The word Allah is khas because it refers to, we know it refers to, correct? The nisba in yaghfiru, is there any ishtirak in that? Yes? What is alif lam min al-dhunub? Why? Because istighraq. But what's the possibility? So even say inna Allah yaghfiru dhunuba. Yes? There's an ihtimal, another nas or something may say, well, dhunub is am, but actually is makhsus from another text. When you say jami'an, what does that do? That is tafsir. That the word dhunub is am and the am is baqi ala hayatihi. You understand? So the mutakallim himself explains something or says something which removes the possibility of majaz or removes the possibility of takhsis. That's called tafsir. Yes? So even though am is qat'i in itself, there's a possibility another nas can bring the takhsis of this. So now I will say here, there is no sin. If there's another nas, for example, another hadith that says, so and so sin can't be forgiven. Then we say, well, that's not true because this is mufassar. The mutakallim himself has said, unless if it's the same daraja, we will say then that problem hukam is mansukh, but it can't be takhsis. You following? So let's go on here. Example. مثاله في قوله تعالى فسجد الملائكة كلهم أجمعون. So al-malaika is it singular, is it plural? Plural. What does it have on it? Alif lam. What kind of alif lam is it? Istighraq. So that malaika is what? Am. So on its own, according to us, am ghayr makhsus is qat'i. Is it possible to have another text saying, well, fulan, malaika never done sajda? Possible, isn't it? But when you have kulluhum, what does that kulluhum do? It is takhsis. Sorry, it is tafsir. It is tafsir here that the malaika is am sigha and there is no ihtimal of takhsis. There's tafsir from the mutakallim to remove the possibility of what? Takhsis. Fasmul malaika ظاهر في العموم. So when we say al-malaika, apparently what comes to our mind, that's obvious meaning that comes to our mind, that's for am. Correct? So we take it as am. Yes? إلا أن احتمال التخصيص قائم. There is a possibility. Now what is it going to be? It could be takhsis somewhere. We not remove that possibility. Without any dalil, we say that's a dalil without any, that's a possibility without any evidence. But possibility is there. If we have evidence for it, we can take it. But the ihtimal is there that there could be another text somewhere saying that it's makhsus. But when kulluhum comes, what happens now? The ihtimal of takhsis, فَانْسَدَّ بَابُ التَّخْصِيص بِقَوْلِهِ كُلُّهُم. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says kulluhum, what happens? Now takhsis is not possible. Then he's got one text here, which I'll explain what it means, but it's not musallam from a lugha. Just explain what it means. He says here, ثُمَّ بَقِيَ احْتِمَالُ التَّفْرِقَةِ. It is possible that they all sajda when? Different times. Yes? التفرقة في السجود, في وقت السجود. Yes? So he's saying here, فَسَدَّ بَابُ التَّأْوِيل, that majaz, that the meaning of, they've all prostrated but not at the same time, at different times. فَانْسَدَّ بَابُ التَّأْوِيل, the bab of ta'wil, meaning saying that, okay, we know malaika is ظاهر في الاجتماع وظاهر في العموم. So كلهم is تفسير في العموم and أجمعون is تفسير في الاجتماع. So therefore by saying أجمعون, taking the possibility that it happened at different times becomes munsad, becomes close. There are questions raised regarding the second point, that is it really for that or is it for ta'keed or ta'keed? A second ta'keed. Mufassirun have differed. But what he's saying here, his opinion is that the second text, second word, ajma'un, removes the possibility or the ihtimal of tafriqa fi sujood. So the sajad al-malaika on its own is ظاهر في العموم, ظاهر في الاجتماع. And the word kulluhum is tafsir fil umum and ajma'un is tafsirun fil ittihad fi zaman. So now these two words are tafsir, which removes two ihtimal. Understood? We'll go through some more examples tomorrow, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So now we'll be discussing an example of mufassar in shari'iyat. So he says here, إِذَا قَالَ تَزَوَّجْتُ فُلَانَةً. So if you say تَزَوَّجْتُ فُلَانَةً, فلانة sorry فلانة is غير منصرف. I have married so and so بدون عقد نكاح جواب إيجاب قبول. Now the word تزوج الظاهر في النكاح and it's also نص في النكاح. But if you say شهرا بكذا, what does شهرا do now? It says I have married her for how long? Huh? A month. بكذا in exchange for so and so amount of mahar. So we say here تزوجت ظاهر في النكاح. That's how the word, when you say تزوجت, the meaning that comes to your mind immediately is nikah. However, there's an ihtimal in تزوجت that it could mean mut'ah. But without any external evidence, we don't look at every possibility each time. Yes? Correct? So when a person تزوجت, it means a nikah. And that's what we take the ruling all the time. But there's an ihtimal, which we don't have evidence for, that it could mean mut'ah. But if there's evidence for this, we will say here, فَبِقَوْلِهِ شَهْرًا. When he said shahran, he's in tafsir of his murad. And when I said تزوجت, I actually meant mut'ah. Yes? فَقُلْنَا هَذَا مُتْعَةٌ. This is mut'ah, وَلَيْسَ بِنِكَاح. So even though he said تزوجت فلانا شهرا بكذا, the word تزوجت فلانة, this is الظاهر في النكاح. But the word shahran is the mutakallim's bayan himself, what he meant by تزوجت. So he said تزوجت here is a majaz for mut'ah, or the word تزوجت is meant in the meaning of mut'ah. And mut'ah is not permissible. So we say here, this is ليس بنكاح. You understand? So when he said shahran بكذا, mutakallim has now clarified his intended meaning. Is that clear to everybody? So in this situation, we will say the nas, the zahir will dominate it, and the meaning we'll take from this is the mufassar, which is shahran. You understand? Next example. ولو قال لفلان علي ألف من ثمن هذا البلد أو من ثمن هذا المتاع. What does he do now? لفلان علي ألف. That's the first part of the text. Then he goes on to say من ثمن هذا العبد أو من ثمن هذا المتاع. So علي ألف is a nas in making 1,000 compulsory. Meaning, why has the mutakallim brought this text? He's brought this text to show that I owe fulan. How much? 1,000. Yes? But when he says min thamani hadha al-abd or min thamani hadha al-mata', so this is basically iqrar. He's acknowledging that he owes the person money. But when he says min thamani hadha al-abd or min thamani hadha al-mata', this is now a tafsir. What's tafsir? The wajh, the reason, the how it has become compulsory. How has it become compulsory? Because as an exchange for this slave's money, or this laptop, or this microphone, or this screen, or whatever. Do you understand? So now, ihtimal al-tafsir baqin. This is clear. But it's ihtimal al-tafsir that he will give clarification regarding a certain aspect of the nas. فَبِقَوْلِهِ مِنْ ثَمَنِ هَذَا الْأَبْدِ, by saying مِنْ ثَمَنِ هَذَا الْأَبْدِ or مِنْ ثَمَنِ هَذَا الْمَتَاعِ, he has now بَيَّنَ الْمُرَادَ بِهِ. He has now clarified his intended meaning. What is his intended meaning? His intended meaning is I owe you because or as a result of me purchasing the slave from you, purchasing the goods from you, purchasing a laptop from you, purchasing a mic from you. Therefore, we would say this is a iqrar of a bay', not a mutlaq iqrar, I owe you money. Therefore, what gets preference? Tafsir, mufassar or nas? So we said this is the asal. This is the asal. Therefore, يَتَرَجَّهُ الْمُفَسَّرُ عَلَى النَّص. So his part of the text, which clarifies his intended meaning, will have tarjih over the nas. The nas is just to say, I owe him 1,000. But then there is no clarity regarding how he owes him. If there's no other commentary, you say you owe him 1,000 mutlaqan, without any condition. But when you put a tafsir on, that tafsir is mu'tabar, because tafsir is higher than nas. What's the tafsir? That I owe him as a result of purchasing the slave. I owe him as a result of purchasing these goods. So لا يلزمه المال إِلَّا إِنَّ قَبْضِ الْأَبْدِ وَالْمَتَاعِ. What will he have to do? He'll have to pay the 1,000 when? When he gets the property, the mabi', the thing that he's bought. Do you understand? He can't go to court, or the person, for example, لِفُلَانٍ, say for example, لِزَيْدٍ. Zayd can't take me to court and get 1,000 out without handing over the goods, based on my statement. Because my statement is clear that the reason I owe you 1,000 is because of what? As a result of me purchasing these goods. So the Qazi can say, yes, the ijab and qabul is done. This text of yours, alayya alfun min thamani hadha al-abd. We will consider this text. But the tafsir part of this is what? How did 1,000 come about compulsory? As a result of a purchase. So the judge will give a decision that he will have to pay 1,000 and he will have to hand over the abd of the mata'. If he refuses one, then he will have to pay 1,000. And what will happen? It depends on the rules of transaction, etc. Do you understand the masla in here? Acha, the fourth one. لو قوله لفلان علي ألف. I owe Abdullah 500. What does 500 mean? What is الظاهر? Pounds. ظاهر في الإقرار نص في نقل البلد. From saying لفلان علي ألف, from this we learn two things. One is إقرار, or one is that the alf has to be from the local currency. نقل البلد, the local currency. Correct? It is clear. علي ألف is إقرار. علي لفلان علي, that's for ظاهر in إقرار. And the nas has brought the text. Again, is this nas or is this ظاهر? You can argue for it. But the main part is the next part. فإذا قال من نقد بلد كذا, I owe you as 500 or 1,000 from the currency of so and so city. Now that currency of so and so city is in tafsir of an ihtimal. فيترجح المفسر على النص. Yeah, المفسر النفس. Not nafs, على النص. You following? So therefore, what will he have to pay? The whatever currency he is declared. فلا يلزمه نقد البلد. The local currency will be complete. Rather, whichever currency he mentioned will be complete. Yes? Are you following? Yes. So, بحكم العرف of the understanding we'll get is you have to pay the amount he did iqrar for in the local currency. But however, if he clarifies and he makes it explicit, then the explicit tafsir will be mu'tabar. Everybody following? Okay. وَأَمَّا الْمُحْكَمْ. Yes, so it's supposed to be المفسر, it's supposed to be المحكم there at the top. Never changed it. فَهُوَ مَزْدَادَ قُوَّةً عَلَى الْمُفَسَّرِ. That the muhkam is that which is more clear, and not really clarity in terms of it doesn't have the meaning is very clear and it has no ihtimal of nasr. Basically that's what it means here. It cannot be abrogated. Okay, is it 1B or 2Bs? I don't know. English, you figure out. It cannot be abrogated. Is that spelled right? You're not sure? Yes. So it cannot be mansukh, meaning you cannot say, oh, the ruling is abrogated. So if you look at it again here, let's look at all of it together. When it's zahir, yes, or a nas, what possibility does it have? That it's a majaz. No? We hear a meaning, but the mutakallim meant a majaz. It's ihtimal, isn't it? Correct? Acha. It can also be khas. That is am, not khas, but it's makhsus. The zahir is am, the zahir is umum, but it's takhsis. There's ihtimal, isn't there? When you bring a mufassar, now the mufassar may remove this or both. Yes? But it can still be mansukh. Al-Zahir can be mansukh, Al-Nas can be mansukh, Al-Mufassar can be mansukh. But a muhkam can't be mansukh, meaning it's definite, it can't be changed. Are you following? Now, a muhkam in shari'i, in sam'iyat, meaning in ahadith and Quranic verses, is two types. One is muhkam li dhatihi, one is muhkam li ghayrihi. Muhkam li dhatihi, it means that word cannot, or that sentence cannot be abrogated in itself. Forget anything else. When you read that sentence, we know this ruling is going to last for eternity. And لِغَيْرِهِ, when you read it, we don't come to that information. But something else tells us that it is now permanent. Following? This is لِغَيْرِهِ first. This is the verse in the Quran. Hypothetically, was it not possible that Ramadan became mansukh, the fast of Ramadan? Hypothetically. So in the Prophet's lifetime, what could have happened? I tested you, the Sahaba fasted for 2 or 3 years, no more fasting, hypothetically. Yes? كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And then 2 years later, 3 years later, Allah says, الْآنَ خَفَّ اللَّهُ عَنْكُمْ. Yeah? Now Allah has made it easy for you, no more fasting. Hypothetically, it's possible. Now the Prophet has passed away. Is that possible? So it's muhkam now, isn't it? How is it muhkam? بِمَوْتِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has now passed away, we know that ruling that he left will remain forever. For him. Another type of muhkam, another type of word which does not have the possibility of becoming abrogated, is that word in itself is muhkam. Either min haythul ma'na. Let's say, for example, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ. The next verse said, no, لَمْ نُرْسِلْ نُوحًا. Is that possible? You can't do nas of ikhbar. If it's a khabar, that's lies in it. So did you homework? I did my homework. Oh, that's mansukh. did you read this? Did you do homework? Yes, I did homework. Show me. Oh, that was mansukh, my previous jumla. You can't do that, can you? That's kadhib. So when it's ikhbar, when it's an ikhbar, you're giving information. Then in this what happens? This is no longer able to be mansukh. Sometimes the sigha shows us. For example, لا تقبلوا لهم. That's what abadan. Forever. So the word forever shows that now this is going to last forever. The ruling forever. That when the person said it, that's what it meant. Let's say, for example, we will not have an Usool al-Shashi exam. You will have an exam. So imagine I told you this right now, that I'm feeling really kind and polite and helpful and soft. No Usool al-Shashi exam. Yes? Before the exam I said, before the day of the exam start, oh, you know, I changed my mind. You will have an exam. Can I make that mansukh? Because this is like a khabar, isn't it? This is why you lied to us. You can't say made the hukam mansukh. You say you lied to us, you deceived us, and everybody will get angry and go into frenzy. Yes? However, as I said, do not ask questions regarding issues outside the text currently in this book. That's hukam, isn't it? Can I make mansukh? I can say, well, okay, now we finished the first chapter, we're doing revision, now ask the questions. Or now we're doing Nunu Anwar, now it's a more detailed book, you can ask other questions. And the Usool al-Shashi is very simple, don't ask outside questions. So you can do madnas of this. I can say now, you may ask questions, we say this is mansukh. So this is muhkam. Because the sigha is khabar, so it can't be abrogated. This is not muhkam. It has the possibility of being abrogated. Yes? Do you understand? So let's take a few examples regarding muhkam. Mithaluhu fil kitab. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ. Why is this muhkam? Because the jumla khabariyah is khabar. Allah is all aware of everything. Allah is aware of everything. Can it be mansukh? They can't mansukh. Why? Because then that means, is it lies in the Quran? Inna Allah la yazlimu an-nasa shay'a. Allah does not oppress the people in the slightest. Muhkam lidhati li ghayrihi. And lidhatihi is because of ma'na, it's a jumla khabariyah, or bisigha, meaning there's a word in the sigha that shows us. Wa fil hukmiyat ma qulna. Hukmiyat meaning shari'i rulings and divorce, talaq, purchase, i'taq, all of those. If a person says, لِفُلَانٍ عَلَيَّ أَلْفُ دِرْهَمٍ مِنْ دَرَاهِمِ بُخَارَةٍ مِنْ ثَمَنِ هَذَا الْأَبْ. What do we have in the sentence? We say, well, this first part, that first sentence has been uttered, and the maqsood of this is to do iqrar, to owe something. Now, this min darahim Bukhara. Min darahim Bukhara. What is this? This is now a tafsir, because alfu dirham is, if you say dirham, we know the meaning. It is zahir. What is it zahir in? Zahirun fi local currency. Correct? So in regards to the type of currency, min darahim Bukhara is what? A tafsir of this. Yes? And min thamani hadha al-abd, also tafsir of this. That why? How is it become? Okay? How has it become what? Yes. But iqrar, what we say is that iqrar are muhkam. Why? Like all insha'iyat. When you do transactions, when you utter a statement, it has to have validity. And it can't be mansukh. If not, how would we function? Abdullah, here, I'm selling you this laptop, £500. Now you bought it £500 and you're going to sell it on for £550, £600, knowing you £1,000. Yes? The guy off for £1,000. Now if I say, oh, mansukh, buy is mansukh. He sold it on another person. How are you going to... You're following? So when you have transactions, divorce, nikah, freeing a slave, buying, selling, these are insha'iyat. You're giving information, you're making a statement. So now these things can't be abrogated. They're muhkam. If you say this, and it's, oh, just joking, oh, nice mansukh, then you can just go on and say whatever you want to say. Are you following? So iqrar is muhkam. You can't go back on it. It can't become mansukh. You following? In shari'iyat, you say, oh, again, say, to his wife, anti taliqun. Mansukh. How is that going to work? Here, I'm selling this for £500. So I buy it. You know what? He said that too quickly. Maybe it's a good price. Oh, mansukh, £600. You can keep on messing around. Or after 2 years sold it, realize, you know what? Price has gone up. Selling back the Bitcoin, mansukh. Because the price has gone up. You sold the gold. Now the price has dropped. The mansukh, I'm not buying it anymore. No. You get it? So these transactions are muhkam. Do you see what I mean by muhkam? These transactions are muhkam. You can't just nullify and just go back on your word. So they have no possibility of nasakh. وفي الحكميات ما قلنا في الإقرار إنه لفلان علي ألف من ثمن هذا الأب فإن هذا اللفظ. So this whole word. So this is nas, and this is ثمن هذا الأب is a tafsir of how he got it, and min naqd Bukhara is the tafsir of the type of dirham. But the whole iqrar is muhkam. You can't go back on it. Are you following? في لزومه بدلا عنه. So this text is muhkam, that the alf is compulsory upon him in exchange for the slave. وعلى هذا نظائره, أي all the other hukam like talaq, i'taq, buying, selling, ijab, qabul, all of these things, it is a muhkam. You can't go back on these. Understand? Yes? What's the ruling of a muhkam? وحكم المفسر والمحكم لزوم العمل بهما لا محالة is قطعي الدلالة. Yes? That's what it means basically. Does everybody understand this? Any questions regarding this? Is it clear? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So let us just summarize before we finish off the lesson. So what do we say here? We are now discussing Usool al-Shashi, and in Usool al-Shashi we're deriving or we're studying about principles, how we learn to derive rulings from the Quran, Hadith, and other sources such as Ijma and Qiyas. So the first discussion we have is regarding Kitabullah, and because Kitabullah is lafz, is words. So how do we use these words? How do we understand these words? And in each example, even though it's primarily Kitabullah, we digressed and we went on to other fiqhi rulings which are linked to that same grammatical rule. So we said here, look, we can analyze words from different perspectives. Just as we have our coding, we have definite, indefinite one aspect, ma'rifah, nakira, i'rab is another aspect, numbers another aspect, gender is another aspect. Similarly here, we can analyze words from different perspectives. One perspective is the wada'. How has this word been originally used, original meaning? Wada' is coinage. So we can say the word has been coined for a known meaning. And if that known meaning is one fard, whether it's an individual member, it's a naw or a jins, it's still one. You're not talking about afrad, you're talking about individuals. Yes? That's called khas. And this khas can either be mutlaq or muqayyad. Mutlaq means there's no restriction on this. And then muqayyad means there's a restriction, either inat, in mudaf ilay, or some particular quality which confines it to certain members. So you mean one member, but with that quality. We have mutlaq and muqayyad. Then we're on to am. And in am, we said that am is when the word is known, the meaning is known, but it refers to multiple afrad. If no members have been excluded from the original ruling, it's called ghayr makhsus. If anybody has been excluded, it's called makhsus. And then from here, khas is it am or is it qat'i or dhanni? And it's all referring dalala or thubut. Dalala. This is qat'i. Am, qat'i or dhanni? Depends. Ghayr makhsus is qat'i and makhsus is dhanni. Then we moved on to mushtarak. In mushtarak work, what is it? Well, we have to then, you don't leave as mushtarak. If you leave as mushtarak, how can you amal upon it? So you have to do a ta'wil. A ta'wil is going to be what? Dhanni qat'i. Dhanni. And if you have a mushtarak word and the tafsir is done from the mutakallim, that becomes what? What's that called? Mufassar. And that is going to be qat'i or dhanni? Qat'i. Then we know the coinage, we know how it's been coined, we know what it's originally used for, but how is it actually used now? If you use it in the original word that has been coined for, that's called, what's that called? Haqiqah. Correct? It's called haqiqah. Should put one more extra spoon in your coffee. No? That's called haqiqah. If it moves away from the original meaning, it's called majaz. Correct? Now, when we using this word, the haqiqah majaz, how clear and obvious is the intended meaning? Is it very clear and obvious the haqiqah is intended? Or is it very clear and obvious the majaz is intended? If it is very clear and obvious, the isti'mal, what's it called? Sarih. And if it's not clear and obvious, what is it going to be? Kinaya. So because if a word is sarih, do you need a niyyah to do ta'yin of the intended meaning? So you say here, there's no niyyah. La ihtiyaj ila niyyah. And if you have a kinaya, then what do you need? You need a niyyah. Because why? The word is muhtamil. Correct? So this is how we analyze the word from the aspect whether the word is, how it has been coined, and how it is currently used. And when it is currently used, how clear is that current usage or the intended usage? Following? The next step is, when we see this text in front of us, we go to the third level. How do we understand the meaning? And which aspect is the meaning we're understanding? So are we understanding the meaning from just the apparent? So instead of saying clear for zahir, what a better translation? The apparent. So in sarih, the meaning of sarih is that we are clearly able to understand the murad of the mutakallim. And in zahir, we say, okay, when we understand the meaning, are we just understanding from the apparent wording without any deeper thought, any context? That's called the zahir. And if we are understanding, looking at what's the purpose of this text? What's the purpose of this text? What's that called? Nas. If this text is clarifying something and it removes the possibility of takhsis or majaz, and it is clarifying the intended meaning, what's this called? Mufassar. And if this word no longer has the possibility to be abrogated or changed, it's called what? Muhkam. You following? And then the next four opposite to these are khafi, mushkil, mujmal, and mutashabih. We haven't done those as yet. Those will come in the next lesson. Does everybody understand what we're doing so far? سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك.